the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Welcome back to the AV Profession, the show by and about AV professionals. I am your host, Taylor Ryan Moore, and with me today is a little special episode. Tom, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good morning, Taylor. My name is Tom Koch. I am the Executive Vice President for the Live Events Division of Conference Technologies, known as CTI.
And why it's a very special episode is because Tom and I both work for the same company secretly, but don't tell anyone. So to kick things off of my favorite part of the podcast, the icebreaker question, since we're both in the St. Louis area, I have to know, what are your thoughts on the famous Emo's Pizza here? Is it your go-to pizza, or like, what's your vibe on it?
So definitely love the thin crust pizza. Definitely love the St. Louis cheese. Emo's, I think, was the original, but there's so many out there now that are just as good or better. But you can never go wrong with Emo's. You can never go wrong with a little St. Louis thin crust. Yeah.
Oh no, you can't go wrong. I go to the grocery store to try to find pizzas that sort of imitate it, so I don't have to break the bank trying to go to Emo's Pizza. And it's just like, it never hits. Even the frozen Emo's at Schnucks, I'm like, it's nowhere near as good as like getting it fresh from Emo's.
That's fresh is always better, but there are some good frozen pizzas coming from the hill now that are tasty.
I'm gonna have to check that out at the grocery store. Yeah. Alrighty, well, today's episode is all about live events, but before we jump into all the funness, why don't you give us like a background of where you were before you started doing the live events part of AV?
So it's a lot longer ago than I want to imagine, but it was almost 30 years ago. So really, before I was in live events, I was in college. So I went to college. I studied mass communications with an emphasis in radio. I was hoping to get out of college and join a radio station, be a DJ, do all that kind of stuff. Work in radio like I had grown up on in the 70s and 80s. Unfortunately, as I graduated and got out, I realized that the market for becoming a DJ was a lot tighter than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. The job offers were in very small towns that you had to move to for very little pay and very little exposure. So while I kind of played around with doing that kind of stuff, I went into retail work. So I was doing a lot of retail management, working with a lot of different companies here in St. Louis, and bounced around a little bit from retail job to retail job, as retail people do, and did that for a few years after college. Yeah.
So what was like the first sort of entryway into, I guess, AV as a whole, but specifically live events? Was there like a breaking point? Was there like someone that came into your life at another job that was like, hey man, have you heard of this path? Like what did that look like?
So I was still working the retail world. Didn't much care for retail as a whole. I did learn a lot from retail, especially the customer service angle of things and how to work with people and how to deal with difficult customers and people's needs. So learned a lot there, but was still looking for jobs. And so I came across an open position that was just posted for a company back then called Swank Audiovisuals, which was based here in St. Louis. It was a family-owned company. Unfortunately, they're now gone. They were bought out by another company. But it was an AV job. It was an entry job as a technician here in St. Louis, and basically. It interested me because I kind of was in, the radio background. I'd been working with electronics, been doing things. And that just seemed kind of like the description was kind of like, oh, I get to play with equipment. I get to do different things. I maybe get to be a little more creative and things like that. So I did end up taking that job and becoming a entry-level technician here in St. Louis for that company.
Did anything that you learned from the radio station or your time in broadcasting help you out in this world in any way? And like, if so, how much did it help you out?
Yeah, certainly the retail aspect of things and again, to the customer service. I mean, audio visuals and live events, we're using equipment, we're using our team and things like that, but really we're providing a service for a customer, and having that customer service background, being able to talk to customers, being able to listen to customers and figure out exactly what they are looking to do, what their vision might be for a show or for an event, certainly helped out quite a bit. And then again, just the background with some electronics, I certainly did not know 90% of what I learned when I got into this job. But just kind of having that background of that kind of world. The retail world also is, as everyone knows, is not a 9-to-5 job. The hours are crazy. They're nights, weekends. Live events is the same thing. So live events, the hours are whenever the customer needs to have their event and wherever they have their event. So I think I was used to that kind of, schedule and that kind of hours, which kind of lended to it as well.
When your first job at the Swank Audio Visual, were you doing more so like permanent installations, or were you doing more of like the temporary live events type of installations?
Yep.
And if so, do you prefer one or the other?
It was true live events. It was based out of the Swank worked with hotels, and I was based in one of the larger hotels here in St. Louis at the time. So we were doing all the live events and audiovisuals for the guests that were booking events in the hotel. So their ballroom, their breakout rooms, things like that. But yeah, all temporary, all live events.
Sort of besides the obvious, what is like the biggest difference between doing a permanent installation versus doing like a live events installation project?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is live events. You set it up maybe on a Monday. The event happens on Tuesday, and you tear it out on Tuesday night or Wednesday morning. So it is very temporary. It's very one-off. Whereas the integration, the install side is you're putting something in there for long-term use and long-term installation. So live events is very much more larger events too. So the integration, maybe their meeting rooms and their corporate office and things like that. And these are live events may have anywhere from 20 people to thousands of people showing up for one of these events.
For when you're putting together, I guess, like an event for a client, what does that sort of timeline and workflow look like? Because obviously it's not like I call you the week before, I need all this equipment by next week, put it up and then tear down in 24 hours. Like, what does that timeline and process kind of look like?
People do that. People call us last minute and say that. So
I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Ideally, you want several weeks to several months to put something together. The bigger the event, the more time you need. So again, an event that may have 50 people at it, you could get a call the week before and be able to put together an event for 50 people the next week. Events that are, going to have 1,000 people at it are going to be, 2,000 or 3,000 people at it. Those you kind of plan on for several weeks to several months. So ideally, if you kind of average it all together, you definitely want, 3-4 weeks to plan on things. But it is fortunately and unfortunately all over the map. We sometimes have a year's notice on an event, and I took calls this morning for events that are 5 days from now. So it is literally all over.
What's the longest you've ever planned for an event?
A year. So those are the events that we have obviously have regular customers we work with. We know that they have annual events and things like that. So some of those larger events where it's the company's big event of the year that we know, after the event ends, we start planning almost immediately for the next event. So definitely the regular annual events for customers we have the most time with working on.
Now, I know no two events are the same, and not all live events are the same. So do you have a preference of types of events you like to work on or plan, or are they all just sort of like, I don't know, you just have like fun with all of them?
Yeah, I mean, part of the excitement of live events is everything is different. No two events are the same. No two regular events the same. So if we're working with a customer and we've done their annual event, let's say 5 times, each year we make it different. We want to keep it exciting for the customer, for the attendees, and things like that. So they're all very exciting. Kind of the philosophy I look at is whether you have 10 people in a room or 5,000 people in a room, those two meetings are exactly the same as far as importance goes. Those 10 people in a room, I may not know what they're talking about. They may be planning buying a new company. They may be talking about rolling out a new drug in a week. So the small events that are kind of basic and simple are just as important to us as the event that has thousands of people in it and we had a year to plan. So, but they're all exciting.
So in your lengthy career of live events and live event productions, and now being over the live events team here at CTI, I guess I want to know what makes a good live events team. What do you look for when you're like deploying people out in a project, and what helps that workflow sort of flow?
So people that work in live events, whether it's technicians or salespeople or production managers, whatever they might be, they're kind of a special breed because again, they're people that don't want to work a 9-to-5 job. They enjoy the different schedules. They enjoy, working outside that normal box, and kind of people that don't want to be sitting in a cube and don't want to be sitting still too long. So, and so you take those people and you find those people that have a passion for the equipment, a passion for wanting to, see a live event come together, happen, and then have a customer say, "Man, that was awesome" afterwards. So, you really look for people that are kind of a combination of that don't care about the weirdness of the hours, but almost embrace it, and that they're really excited about every show and making it happen and coming up with creative ideas on how to do things new and different.
We're almost coming up 3 years on the whole global shutdown pandemic that kind of happened. And with that, a lot of live events was on pause. So can you talk about what that period was like? Was it scary? Did you ever think we were going to get back to sort of normalcy? What did that period look like at the start of the pandemic to now?
Yeah, so it's obviously a very tough time for this industry, a tough time for the world, and everyone was affected by it and differently. So our industry, it all happened so fast that, we kind of saw that groups, as the pandemic was coming up, that groups were starting to cancel, or they were calling to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and postpone it. Let's not do it in February. Let's do it in July. And so, okay, we'll just move some stuff around and push things off. And literally within a 2 or 3 week period at the beginning of the pandemic, we went from a few events canceling to literally everybody canceling. And then really that's when the shutdown, in our country happened. And it just, everything, it went from we were some of the best revenue and some of the best events we were doing to literally the next day just shut off. So that's scary in itself. Because you don't know what's going on. We didn't know what's going on with the virus and all kinds of stuff. So, CTI, like many companies, made some adjustments with our staffing and things like that. CTI has a lot of different pillars in their business. So we were able to continue, obviously, as a company and continue with live events during that. But certainly we had to pivot to the virtual world very quickly. So CTI has always done webcasting. We've always done, smaller virtual events and back in the day, video conferencing, things like that. So we had the knowledge, we had the equipment, but to take an event, all of a sudden customers are calling us and saying, hey, that event that normally would have 5,000 people at it, we want it to be virtual now, and we want to have these 20 guest speakers over the next 5 days, and try to figure out how to do that. We started building studios here in St. Louis and 4 other of our locations across the Midwest to handle the virtual events. And we quickly started hiring people back because we knew, some of these studios are getting bigger and bigger and the needs were getting bigger and bigger. We learned a lot as a company on how to do these events over time. The customers really didn't know how to do these events yet, because they were trying to say, oh, well, here's our agenda for the live events. We just want to do the same thing virtually. As we all know now, sitting in front of a video screen for 8 hours watching people speak is not the most exciting thing. So, so we had to teach the customer to do things and stuff like that. But the business still, even with all the virtual events we did, and the web designing and the registration and all that kind of stuff, it got us through that. But yeah, the first 10 months were scary. They were different. You never knew when it was going to end. You didn't know when people wanted to have meetings again. And then even as people started to kind of poke around about having meetings, we would schedule meetings, and then wherever city it was in, the local health department would say, that's too many people, you can't meet together. And so we'd have to cancel that meeting. So it was a scary year and a difficult year. Again, for everybody, but the industry was just hit hard. So a lot of the events happen. We do events anywhere. So we'll do events in a hangar at an airport. We'll do it out in a cornfield. We'll do it at your business, wherever it is.
Exactly.
But nobody was traveling. And one of the big spots that people have events at are hotels, convention centers, and other meeting venues. And those were just completely shut down as well. Even well after people started having meetings again, the hoteliers didn't have enough people to have meetings, so they would cancel the meetings and things like that. So it was it was 10 to 12 months of really strange and difficult times for sure.
And now, as we're easing our way back into sort of live events, are you finding yourself doing more hybrid events where it's like parts virtual, part in person? And if so, has that been like has that been like an easy adjustment to doing your regular workload of trying to create an event that's both live and virtual?
Yeah, so the big question, especially when meetings started happening again live and in person at the end of last year, was, hybrid's always going to be around. No one's going to want to get together in big groups and things like that. And so at the end of 2021, when we saw the business start to pick back up again and have these events, there were certainly many hybrid events. So, instead of having 1,000 people in a room, you're going to have 500 people, and then we'll broadcast the other out for the 500 that couldn't make it or didn't want to come because they were afraid to come or whatever it might be. And certainly we did that, I would say, probably over a good 6-month period, a lot of hybrid stuff. And to your point, you do have to keep it interesting because when it's hybrid, you're back to basically having a live event and then sending that video out for people to watch. Well, a live event could be 3 hours, could be 6 hours, could be 8 hours. So it wasn't as exciting for the people that weren't there because they were more just watching a live event versus before we were tailoring speakers and times and breaks and all kinds of stuff for a true virtual event. So what we found now, though, over the last year or so is we're certainly doing hybrid, I guess we call it, but it's not as complicated as it was. We're now basically streaming out the video just so people can watch it, or we'll record it for a customer and let them, chop it up and put it on their website or their internal learning and things like that. So it's more of just sending the broadcast out for smaller groups of people that couldn't make it. So
what do you tell clients wanting to host a virtual or hybrid event to keep the virtual event interesting and engaging?
Keep the segments short. So you don't want to have a speaker for 2 hours. We've kind of found that that about a half hour to 45 minutes is kind of the top that you want to have somebody speaking or doing something. And then you want to give breaks throughout the day. So again, you don't want to sit in front of your laptop for 8 hours. So you may have a guest speaker in the morning at 9 to 9:30, and then 15-minute break where nothing's going on, and then the next speaker starts at 10 a.m. and that kind of stuff, and have breaks for lunch for the people at home to have an hour or half hour, whatever, to have an actual lunch and get away from the screen and things like that. So really kind of chopping it up and doing some other stuff. There was a lot of different creative things that also, attention getters. There was people would hire magicians that would fill, time. We'd bring them in virtually and they would do magic tricks and different things like that. There was comedians that would come in and do stuff. So the one thing you wanted to do is you wanted to give people a break and allow them to get away from the screen, but you had to pull them back in too. So, some of the creative things like a magician or other stuff would bring people back into the room for the second half of the day and get them back watching again.
I don't think I've ever heard of a magician joining a virtual meeting.
It works, especially with card tricks.
How do you pick the card over the camera? Do you have that's a lot of logistics there for me.
There was a lot going on, but and again, they were all learning how to do stuff too. They were pivoting to, magicians were pivoting for the same way our industry was, that they couldn't do live events, so they went virtual and they figured out how to do magic. Yeah,
we're all just trying to figure it out.
Right.
Do you think, or do you feel that live events is finally back in full force, or do you think we're not really going to be back to normal?
So I'll answer the first question. Yes, live events are absolutely back. We are doing more events now than per month than we were pre-pandemic, and there's a number of reasons behind that. But definitely meetings are happening, large and small. They are out there and they are happening. So I think the trend is going to continue. I think people have learned to manage with working with COVID and things like that. And these events that are happening now, whether it's in a hotel or wherever, people go out of their way to make sure that there's safety protocols put in place and all that kind of stuff. So, we clean our equipment, we clean our microphones off before and after. We do all kinds of things to keep people safe as well. But yeah, the business is very strong right now, and I anticipate it'll continue that way. Normal is I don't know I can call it normal anymore, because you used to be able to kind of pick the trends of a year and say, oh, June and July is usually pretty slow because it's the hot months. People are on vacation, not a lot of corporate business happening. November, December is usually slow. It's the holidays and things like that. There are no slow periods anymore, which is good for the industry. But we're looking at November and December that just booking business like crazy. And I think there's a lot of pent up energy for people that didn't have meetings over the last couple of years. They're trying to get things in and do stuff. It's obviously a little cheaper to do things during the holidays, depending on the venue and stuff like that. But I think the normal of what used to be is gone. We're trying to figure out what the new normal is, but it does seem very exciting, very bright. There's a lot of business out there. There's a lot of events happening.
Nice. So we're coming to the end of the show, and I like to ask all of our guests on here the sort of same general question for if there's someone out there who is looking to get into AV, or has never heard of AV, or is looking to do something different, and they want to try out this industry, what kind of advice would you tell them?
It's a tough industry to describe exactly, what we do. It took me years for my family to figure out exactly what I do, but so we do our best to describe what it is. We talk a lot about the hours and all that kind of stuff that we talked about, but we try to get people in and get to see what it's like, right? So we hire a lot of part-timers that end up becoming full-timers because they want to kind of look at things and while they finish school. But really get people in and kind of let them get their hands on and be creative. So usually if people can get into it, spend a little time with it, they do find that creativity. They do find that they can make a difference. And it's an industry where you can learn as much as you want. You can teach as much as you want. And there's a lot of places you can go. A lot of technicians end up becoming salespeople. Salespeople end up working technical stuff or going to a different department of our company. But for new people coming in, I definitely try to talk to them about the excitement of what the job is, that it's different every day. And if they kind of fit that mold of hey, yeah, I don't want to sit in a chair all day long. I want to get out and do stuff. I want to be moving all the time. That's kind of what lures people in.
Cool. Thank you so much for joining the podcast for our episode 5. If someone wants to reach out and contact you, where can they do that?
Best thing to do is just go to our website at conferencetech.com or cti.com, and they can look us up. We do live events throughout the entire country, although we do have our locations throughout the Midwest, but we do stuff everywhere. So they can get a hold of us that way. They can find out any specific phone number for a city through the website, or they can just fill out a form and get a call back, and we start talking live events with them.
Thank you again for checking out another episode of the AV Profession. To find me, you can follow me on Twitter at _Taylor Moore. That's 2_ Taylor Moore. Be sure to check out our YouTube for more content like this. And to find more AV news and podcasts, head over to our website at avnation.tv. That's avnation.tv.